wanted to run through a few different things, whether it's the prospects that the Rangers have out at spring training, or maybe it's the players that you think could steal a roster spot. Let's start with the prospects if we can. Now, MLB.com put out this really cool, really comprehensive list of all the top prospects that are reported to training camp or will report to, spring training for the teams. Evan Carter, Wyatt Langford. I feel like we've talked about them a whole lot. But for the rest of the top 30, Jack Leiter's there, Justin Foscue is there, Owen White, Dustin Harris, Aaron Zavala, Mark Church, Jonathan Ornelas, Emiliano, is it Teato?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I should have done that ahead of time. Antoine Kelly, Cole Winn. So, like, a whole lot of their prospects are there. So the one thing I wanted to ask you real quick about Mike is you can look at some of the people on this list and you're like, they're not going to make the team. Like, we're well aware of that. What benefit does a prospect get from going to spring training, knowing you're not making the team?
One, you get to hang out with maybe your future teammates. So when I made it up to the Cleveland Indians in 2001, I wasn't in Major League spring training. I was in minor league spring training. I didn't know most of the guys. They had no clue who I was. I'm not saying Corey Seager is going to develop a great relationship with Antoine Kelly during spring training. But for Antoine Kelly, he's in the same room. He's in the same clubhouse. He's eating lunch in the same room or breakfast in the same room. You get to have a feel of what is the personality of this room. Is it a big rambunctious room with a lot of music playing? Is it more of a quiet room? Who are some of the guys that maybe I can become friends with who are on the major league team? So now I do think Antoine Kelly has a great chance to make the team out of spring training. In fact, he's one that I am really watching when we go to spring training. He needs to have a good spring training. He needs to make this team, and he needs to have a role in that bullpen. But I think that for guys that aren't going to get many at-bats in the first 5 innings, the first 5 innings are more of, hey, the major league pitchers are going to pitch the first 5 innings, especially early on in spring, even when you have relievers come in. It's the last 4 innings when we're there that you're like, I don't know who this is pitching, where, hey, you're going to get at-bats there, and they're being watched. You can see there's a net in front of the coaches. They don't even sit in the dugout. So here's another one. Why don't the coaches sit in the dugout during Major League spring training games? How come they're outside of the dugout? They are having scouting report conversations on their own players. I don't like him. I don't see this in him. Or the opposite. You don't want to hear, they don't want their conversation to be heard by other players in the dugout when they go, dude, I think he can make the team. This is something I want. Because what if the guy is competing with that guy who's not playing that day, and they just heard he's better than that guy or he's worse than that guy? So the reason that the coaches are not sitting in the dugout, people will ask me, why do they sit out there and why do they just have a screen in front of them and not sitting in the dugout? Because they're having real conversations about keeping and cutting guys right during that game.
Yeah, and word travels fast down a dugout, Kevin. Like it echoes down those dugout recalls.
I have no doubt about that.
Especially in Oakland.
And that's not all their that's not all their conversation. I don't want to say but they want to make sure if they want to have a real opinion about a player, they want to be able to express that to Boch, or Boch wants to express it to Maddox about a pitcher he's seeing that he's liking or disliking. He doesn't want any of the players hearing that conversation.
And then Chris Young he sits up kind of where we are. I don't see him down there a lot. Where a lot of times I felt like JD was right there, but Chris Young's doing his own stuff up there.
They can sit either place, yes.
But I feel like Chris Young's doing his own, his own stuff, and then he's going to those guys and he's like, "All right, now y'all tell me," and they have a conversation about it. But he already has in his mind like his real feelings on a lot of things.
To your point,
that's a fascinating thing though.
I love what you're saying, and I'm not trying to take a shot at any general manager who didn't play Major League Baseball. There are some of the best general managers in the history of baseball over the last 20 years never touched a professional baseball field, including John Daniels. Okay. I want to make that clear. But John Daniels can't really evaluate players the way that Chris Young can. Chris Young played 15 plus years of professional baseball and over 10 years at the highest level. I'm not saying Chris Young is the one making all the decisions. He's going to go to his analytic department team that have zero experience playing baseball, and he wants all of their information, and he wants to talk to Bochy and talk to Maddox and talk to the hitting coaches and get an idea on what they're thinking. But he's going to have a really strong opinion on what he saw that day of spring training because he's been through it. He's seen guys that are considered can't touch prospects that couldn't make the major leagues, and he's also seen guys that weren't considered very high prospects end up having very great careers in Major League Baseball. So I think for going back to the young guys that probably aren't going to make the team that you just talked about, let's be honest, unless there's major injuries, Jack Leiter's not making the team out of spring training. What can they get out of it? There's a lot of pressure on him. He's the number 2 overall pick. This is a chance every time he takes the mound to show I am way better than what you saw from me last year in AA. And the only people that saw him in AA are the coaches there, and the coaches in AA and AAA are in the dugout during the spring training games until minor league games start, which is about March 10th is about when the AA and AAA games start happening. And
Corey, I think it was you who threw this out there, is the idea of Foscue taking the DH spot, because somebody had texted in and asked, sorry, I'm missing your number at the moment, but you know your 325. Question. Okay. If Foscue takes Josh Smith's spot, because I think Josh Smith and Ezekiel Duran stay in their bench utility capacity, and if Foscue makes it, it would be to be your DH. I'm not saying it has to go that way, but that makes sense to me.
He's not great defensively, but I think he can fill in for a couple of games at like a second base, right? Or a first base if you need
That's what is going to be what you just said.
Shortstop.
Let's see how much Foscue's grabbing a first base mitt.
It's a good point.
Because at second and short, they're going to see Josh Smith and Ezekiel Duran as better defensive options, and same at third base. So I don't know.
With Seager's injury history, you're probably thinking you have to have a guy that can play shortstop.
Yeah, in spring training, we're going to see a lot of Josh Smith and Ezekiel Duran at shortstop. He's not on this list, and he's not a big league invite. I mean, we're not going to have time because of where our show is. It's 8 to noon out there.
Yeah.
I want to go down there, and I don't even know if he'll be there yet because we're leaving by the time minor leaguers are reporting. I want to see Sebastian Walcott play.
Yeah.
I think he just turned 18. I think he's just turning 18, but he's considered kind of that next Evan Carter-like prospect.
Yeah.
And he's 2 to 4 years away from becoming a major leaguer, but that would be somebody I'd want to see that you didn't mention that would just be playing in A-ball minor league games. But yeah, it's going to be interesting.
He'll turn 18 on March 14th.
Okay.
Fantastic.
He's 17 still.
But it'll be interesting with some of those guys you named, those 6th through 9th inning where a lot of people start leaving the game because they're like, I don't know who number 68 is on the mound, and I don't know who number 72 is hitting right now. And so people start going, all right, this is great, man. We got to watch 6 innings of spring training baseball. If you go out there, a lot of people have been asking me about spring training. I think people are making late kind of vacation, like, hey, it's spring break's coming up in a month.
It's a great idea.
Let's go to Arizona. And they're kind of asking about hotels and I'm like, you do not have to stay a mile away from the complex. There are plenty of hotels around. The closer you get to the complex, it seems like looking for people, the more expensive it becomes. There's plenty of places to stay, plenty of places to eat, plenty of entertainment. But those 6th through the 9th inning, you are going to need this roster. The roster you just read off of, you're going to need a roster of 70 guys because it's going to be a lot of AA and AAA guys those last 3 to 4 innings that you're not sure who they are.
I'm definitely lighter. I'm watching as much as I can, but I have every year. Like every time we get a chance to get our eyeballs on Jack Leiter, they're there. Wyatt Langford, Kevin, is obviously on that list of I'm watching this dude because every at bat he could earn it right here.
And okay, that's an interesting point because one of the things that at times it's weird. I'm very split on this, and I hope this makes sense. I get frustrated, but also kind of understand the spring training and to a certain extent the training camp environment with the Cowboys of, hey, these spots are in play. and then you see one of the people competing for that spot just destroy the world. And they're like,
it's spring training.
Yeah, and I get it because pitchers are working on very specific things, and maybe that's not a sequence that you would see in a game. But I do wonder if Wyatt Langford is somebody who, if they tears the cover off the ball, they'll be like, all right, well, this kid's inevitable. Or if he struggles, they'll be like, and that's why you got to send him down to play every single day. Or I'm curious if his fate really does hang in the balance of how spring training goes.
I think it does. Do you know what he's going to be off of spring training? No, not at all. Rugi Odor bats 400 in spring training because they don't throw him breaking balls and they don't throw him fastballs, shoulder high that they know he'll swing at in the regular season. They're just like, the pitchers are out there to work on their stuff if you already have a guaranteed contract with a guaranteed spot on the team. And then if you're a young guy, you're going out there, and in a weird way, young guys are like, watch how hard I throw the ball today. Well, Rugi Odor has no problem with 100. He has a problem with people having sequences of pitches that get him off balance and off timing. So that's the thing. Wyatt Langford's going to see just guys throwing. They're not going to throw to any type of scouting report. In fact, who in the world has a real scouting report off of Wyatt Langford after, 44 minor league games or what it was?
Yeah,
maybe 60,
like that.
And so I look at it, but that's the only decision they can make off of him. They're going to have to look at spring training, and if he bats 250 in spring training with 2 home runs, they're going to say, hey, give him time in AAA and see how it goes. If he bats 350 with 6 home runs in 25 spring training games, they're going to be like, guess what? He's batting 6th opening night against the Chicago Cubs.
Now, you talked about, man, that's my dream scenario. You talked about Antoine Kelly and his importance to the bullpen because it would be him and Brock Burke who would be your lefty representatives in the bullpen, unless I've got that wrong.
No, you like a guy like, if I'm have this right, Danny Duffy, who's like a veteran, invite, like guys like that could.
I got another one I'm going to throw out for you to keep an eye out on is Jake Latz is 12.3 strikeouts per 9 at AAA. So you're going to want a second lefty in the bullpen, right? Like, do you think that's the most likely configuration for this team? 6 right-handers, 2 left-handers in the bullpen.
Probably to start. You could see 5 and 3, but more likely 6 and 2.
And if that's the case, then it might be, Latz against Kelly, or it might be the non-roster invitee Duffy that you just brought up. That's something that I'm going to be interested in because you need a left-handed presence. You're not going to, I would assume, not roll into the season with 7 right-handed bullpen pitchers and 1 left-handed bullpen pitcher. That
most likely
that feels like that's not going to work out for you. So those are a couple names when I'm talking about who could steal a spot. Duffy, Latz. Like, take a look at those guys as potentially being in the left-handed mix.
What's interesting is I don't remember these games. I'm going to be honest. Jake Latz pitched in 3 games for the Rangers last year, all in blowout situations, but he did do a good job. But what you want Jake Latz to do is have a great spring training and then be able to, I don't know when you give this to him, but it would have to be early because you don't have lefties in your bullpen, is how quickly can Jake Latz, and I don't know how they see him as, can he throw the 7th inning when Yordan Alvarez, you do play, I think, the Astros early in April. Hey, at some point, there's going to be a 7th inning that you need to get out Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker. Now, sandwiched in between them is going to be a right-handed hitter, most likely. But that's the thing that I'm worried about early on in the year is when you get a matchup where you have, I know you don't play the Dodgers early, but at some point, you're going to have Freddie Freeman and Ohtani. Or you're going to have Alvarez and Tucker. If you look at the Rangers, you're going to have Seager and Carter at some point batting close to each other. Who's the lefty that's going to make life difficult on these guys? The Rangers don't have one right now. You're hoping they develop one.
And I know we're going to get this question plenty, probably in the next few weeks. We'll try to answer it when we see it come up. What happened to Kumar Rocker? Now, he's coming off his own Tommy John surgery that he's working on. Remember, he had gotten very little work in the minor leagues. So when you talk about the recovery from that injury, still having to make your natural progression up the minors, let's just stay with this season. Rule it out of your mind.
For Rocker?
Yeah.
He's not even going to pitch a ball. Yeah,
it ain't happening.
He's not going to throw 1 professional pitch this year. So if everybody, I just want to get that through your head. Yeah. I like
Not gonna
Kumar
happen.
Rocker. I still hope that he has a future in Major League Baseball for the Texas Rangers. When he got hurt, the time he got hurt, think about this. DeGrom got hurt at the end of April, had surgery in early June, and they're thinking maybe in August he's going to pitch. They're going to look at Rocker and go, dude, we have all the time in the world on him.
Yep.
When he makes the major leagues, you
That's
get a
in the clock,
6-year
yeah.
window.
Yeah.
So they're not going to push this guy. They're going to look at him, and sometime in September or October, he's going to start throwing professional pitches in Arizona. Like, he'll have bullpen sessions this year in August and September, and then at some point in September-ish or October, they're going to be like, all right, you're going to get on the mound against live action here in our, fall camp.